One of the ways we've talked about, and Professor Claudio gave the example of Standard Oil, was a structural remedy. In the U.S., we would call it a structural fix. And that is you go in and say, you know what, you guys are a monopoly, you're acting like a monopoly, you're abusing your power, we're going to break you up into 3 different companies, we're going to dismantle the STP. And that's been done in the U.S. It's rare because it's a very drastic step, essentially for the government to intervene in the free market and do that. The United States tried to do that with Microsoft. Many of you are familiar with that case, I'm sure, where there was a big trial, and the United States wanted to break Microsoft up into different companies. Essentially, the company that started Windows, that we all have on our desktops. But if you recall the facts in this case, the DOJ alleged that Microsoft was using its monopoly power in Windows to force consumers to use Microsoft's other products, like Internet Explorer. And so at the time you had Netscape, which was another internet browser, and so they were trying to put Netscape out of business, or keep Netscape as, if you will, a new entrant, keep them out of the game. And so I think it's a fair analogy here, as I was listening to the presentations today, to say, you do sort of have this abuse of dominance, this monopoly kind of situation, in the sense that, hypothetically, if STP has the platform, that's like Microsoft with Windows. You can't run your computer without Windows. You can't get to, the Internet Explorer, I guess, although now you can with technology, the iPad. But back in those days, a few years ago, you couldn't access the Internet without having a computer that had Windows. And so, similar to that situation, if STPs controls the roads and they have a monopoly on the roads and the toll structure, they have the platform. They have the Windows platform. And they shouldn't be allowed to say, well, you can't bring your automated toll system onto our platform. And that seems to go directly against what CAJE, the restriction CAJE laid down on them, the condition that was set. And it's almost using their market power, their monopoly power, to keep something to themselves and keep out the competitor. They have that platform right now. And so I think, just like with computers, the consumer would benefit, and this is certainly DOJ's position with respect to Microsoft, in having more than one Internet browser. Maybe people didn't like Internet Explorer at the time. They liked Netscape better. They like Google better now. So to have those choices is good. And so in automated tolls, it's better to have those choices. You may get better prices, more innovation. And right now, the consumer here doesn't have that choice. They're stuck with the STP situation for the most part on those 74% of the roads. So in that kind of situation, in order to ensure that that platform is open and that technically people can get their software, their devices to work on those roads, those STP roads, it may require government intervention. It may require that. The United States felt like DOJ had to go to court against Microsoft to get that done. In the end, in that case, in case you don't remember, the DOJ didn't, it ended up winning the case in the district court, the lower court. It was appealed by Microsoft. Microsoft, in essence, won part of the appeal, and the DOJ backed off and said, okay, we're not going to go for the structural remedy. We're not going to break Microsoft up, but what we are going to do is impose a lot of behavioral remedies. And there was a whole list of things Microsoft couldn't do. Microsoft was required to open up the Windows platform so that other companies like Netscape could operate within Windows. And then they were monitored by the DOJ for many years to make sure that Microsoft was complying with that order. So I think there is an analogous situation. The refusal to deal is interesting because that could be a separate violation, a violation in of itself. If you could prove somehow that these companies were conspiring with each other within STP to and this is sort of getting away from the monopoly, but treating them as individual companies, that they are not going to deal with the new entrants. They're not going to allow those new entrants on board or give them access to the platforms, the toll platforms. That would be another well-validated cause of action in antitrust claims. There have been many cases with refusals to deal. Predatory pricing, this is an interesting one. Predatory pricing classically is defined as, I'm going over here a little bit, where a company that usually has monopoly power, dominant company, will offer prices below cost, below their cost, in order to keep new entrants out. And you'll see this sometimes with airlines, where you have a big airline that serves a particular route, a particular market. And when you have a small airline that comes in and tries to have flights between two cities, what you'll do is you'll see the big airline offer discounts that are unbelievable. You can get a cheap ticket. It's lower than a bus fare. You know, there have been cases where the airlines have been challenged on that for predatory pricing, for offering such low prices that it's below their cost. And the only reason they're doing that is to drive the other company out of business. So in the case of this 1% or 2%, I don't know. I think I might disagree with Professor Claudio that I don't know that I'd call it predatory pricing. It's interesting in that it's almost like a discount, but it's a situation where you can't discount. So it does seem, and I would agree, that it does seem designed to keep the new entrant out of the picture. And to that extent, if that's the motive, you know, that could be a cause for challenge. And that could be a theory that CAJE or another body could say, you shouldn't be doing that. This is more evidence that you're trying to, compete unfairly. Market allocation, you know, where you've seen basically, it was interesting, you recall from the marine hose case, where they each had their percentages. You know, they were going to keep their certain percentages. Well, and then if you look at the SCP, all of the companies within it have the same percentage ownership in SCP as they do the roads that they control. So there is an analogy there to sort of dividing up the market and allocating the market within automated tolls. I think that could be used as evidence in a case as well. You know, and then, I mean, I think you have to think, and we've touched on some of these, imagine if you did have competition in this market, what the advantages could be. And these are just some of the ones that I could think of. I'm sure you could think of many more, but, you know, I've heard complaints in the United States where toll gates don't work, you know, there's just bad service. One person I know, like, it didn't work, and they had to drive between the gate and the fence, squeeze their car in to get around because the gate wouldn't go up. I mean, there's just, when you have a monopoly, when you have companies that know that they don't have to compete, service tends to be worse because they don't care. Nobody's going to come in and take that business from them. They don't have an incentive to be the best that they can be because they're not worried about anyone else. Your online balances are not accurate. That's another, you know, common complaint that you can, you know, you could have innovation. You could be as fast or as accurate as Amex or Visa in terms of the transactions. In other words, when you go through that toll, the automated toll, it shouldn't take 2 weeks or 30 days for that balance to show up on your account online. Maybe it could be as fast as doing a credit card transaction where you go through the toll, you go to the computer that night to check your balance, and you know what your balance is. You know right then and there because it's fast. So it's that kind of, you know, more customer service, discounts for off-peak use, or, you know, fuel efficiency, you know, where there's lower tolls for times when there's less traffic to encourage people to drive or use the roads at non-rush hour times so there'd be less traffic to disperse the traffic flow. There could be all sorts of innovations if you open up this process to more competition. And so I think, you know, it's worth, in any case that is brought in Brazil or any debate that occurs in the public forum, I think it's worth not only pointing out the problems with the current situation, and the issues, but also what the positives could be with competition, what the likely advantages are, the innovation and the better service and the lower prices that will probably take place. I want to thank you. You guys have been an awesome group to be with. Again, it was a tremendous honor to be here in Brazil to speak to you all. Know that when I go back to the United States, I'll continue to read about Brazil and be rooting for Brazil to have a prosperous and thriving future. Thank you.